In this episode, we're talking with Cecille Weldon, founder, Future Agent Academy and director at Weldon Co Advisory. Now, we're used to seeing energy rating stickers on our appliances and cars, and now there are forces at work across federal and state governments that are imagining a world in which our homes will have an energy rating. And today we're going to explore what that would look like, how will they be rated, who will pay for the rating, and are tenants and property buyers ready and willing to pay to live in energy-efficient homes?
Welcome to The Elephant in the Room. This is the podcast where we love to talk about the big things in property that never usually get talked about. I'm Veronica Morgan, real estate agent, buyer's agent and buyer's agent mentor, co-host of Foxtel's Location Australia, author of Auction Ready and co-host of Your First Home Buyer Guide.
And I'm Chris Bates, mortgage broker, recently ranked number 5 in Australia out of over 18,000 brokers in the annual MPA Top 100 Mortgage Broker Awards. Before we get started, I need to let you know that nothing we say here can be taken as personal advice. We always recommend you engage the services of an appropriate and experienced professional.
Our guest today is Cecille Weldon, considered Australia's foremost expert on the intersection between residential energy efficiency, property values and the property marketing sector. With a background in real estate, franchising, research, communications and education, and a prop tech entrepreneur in her own right, she helps property professionals to understand what the new consumer wants and how a changing climate, rising running costs and impending regulation are about to change the way we do business. Property and new property upgrades are a key target for new regulation as our homes need to be healthy, cheaper and more comfortable all year round to respond to the challenges of the future. Cecille is currently working with governments on a program which is going to oversee the home energy rating pathway as part of the national framework for residential property to display home energy ratings at point of sale or rent. And that is precisely why we've invited Cecille along to talk to us today. Welcome back, Cecille. It has been quite a long time since we've seen you on the podcast. In fact, we weren't even videoing back then. It was before COVID. So much has changed. Welcome.
It's great to be here and great to be able to be a part of this conversation with everyone that listens to your podcast because it's such an important one right now.
Agreed.
Cecille, it's been a few years, as Veronica sort of alluded to there. And I'd like to say that, we were a bit at the forefront of that in terms of it was not really on the media. We didn't really hear too much around livability and we were very interested in it. And what has changed, I guess, in terms of the market? Because I feel like it has moved a bit since our last chat in terms of, I guess, the industry's approach to livability and sustainability.
There's a number of factors which are sort of like a confluence which are making this moment extremely exciting. But also there are opportunities for every single stakeholder in the property sector, from homeowners to renters to investors to property professionals like real estate agents, property managers, to valuers, for the financial and lending sector. This is one piece that everyone wins. And the big winner is our homes. So there's a number of factors. Firstly, rising running costs, which we understand are really, really top of mind for everyone. People haven't been able to link that to the features that a property has. So they know they've got the running cost pressure, but when they're going to look for homes, there's not that awareness, and the property industry aren't connecting that for them at point of sale or rent, where they're going, these features will deliver these lifestyle benefits. Reduced running costs, comfort all year round. So there's been this rising consumer demand. So 89% of consumers coming to open homes would be really interested in these things.
Right.
But they're not visible. So they say two things: I can't see it and I don't know how to ask for it yet. And so there's this rising consumer demand. There's the need on a national level, and this is where the regulatory framework starts to come in. We need to get better at our energy productivity. So from a nation building point of view, it's called productivity. From a homeowner's point of view, it's called efficiency. It basically means we need to get more out of every piece of energy we need. And so our homes are big wasters of energy. So for the nation, on a national level, we need to increase productivity without increasing the use of energy, right? So on a national level, there's that top down, but the big driver is the financial and lending sector are now having to report on the climate risk of their loan.
Right, okay.
So they're having to look at the energy efficiency potential of all of the properties in their loan book. And Australian properties are not comfortable and very expensive to run. So they're creating new loan product that's going to drive a lot of these very targeted property upgrades. So it's coming from every sector, you know what I mean? But how you frame it or how you understand how it matters to me depends on who you are in that stakeholder group.
It's a complicated one, isn't it? Because as you're speaking then, I'm wondering, a lot of this is like chicken and the egg in a way, you know, and I think to myself, as a buyer or as a tenant who are out there trying to compete with other buyers and tenants for a property, and they might have all these lofty ideals as to what they want in a property, and then and the reality is that other people may or may not value those things, and in the end, they don't have the options available to them. And we'll park for a moment the fact that it's, how do you know? You know, we'll park that just for a minute because that's an interesting way to go here. But even for somebody who's that way inclined, it's like, well, I can't play in this marketplace if I actually then think I need to add that layer of complexity or those features to a property, because the properties either don't exist or they're going to be so competitive if other buyers really are valuing them as much as I do. You know what I mean? So when we got an issue with availability of properties to fulfill this intention, right?
Well, let's challenge that a bit. So
please do.
Since the early 2000s, Australia has had energy efficiency compliance in the National Construction Code. So all new homes have had to meet that energy efficiency compliance, and that's been rising. It began at 5 stars. Yep. It's now 7 stars out of 10. So one thing that's important to remember is that often these features are in the house. They're just not being showcased. They're just not being showcased at the point of sale or rent. So sometimes they're in the home and they're not being pulled up by the property marketing industry because they don't know what features matter and they don't know how to position them. The other thing that you're talking about is really important, which is the real estate moment, is what I call it, is time sensitive, highly competitive and highly emotional. So how are you going to understand what a house has in those moments? And really, it doesn't have to be complex. So one of the reasons why a home energy rating is going to be part of the story is it's very simple, a certificate that shows you what the score is and then what the upgrade opportunities are to keep upgrading that when you purchase the house, to be able to, even if you're an investor, to be able to keep upgrading in the right direction for value. Because what's important to understand here is this is a new way of looking at property value. It's not just afford to buy or afford to rent, it's afford to live in. Okay, so it's the running
operating costs. Yes.
It's the running, and we only, in our national narrative, we only have the big end of town's idea of an affordability index. But that's just one part of the cycle. It's the ongoing affordability we need to bring together with that afford to buy, because something that may be more expensive to buy may be much cheaper to run in the long run, and that will support you in being able to make those mortgage payments because you can't control that going up and down. Conversely, something that might be very cheap to buy is actually extremely expensive to run, and so you can get yourself in a bit of a problem. So we're bringing in this new piece of, it's really, to be honest, to be very vanilla about it, more comprehensive information about property.
Very.
That's basically what it is.
So do you think it's the pain of, higher energy bills? I called my last month, I was like, whoa, it's been a cold winter, right? I think a lot of people are getting that bill shock. Do you think it's when consumers are feeling this pain on the running costs together with all their other things, and they're saying, well, we're going to stay here long term, we're really shooting ourselves in the foot here, we could be saving, a lot of money per month because the costs are quite high, that's part of this, and also all their other costs? Is it they're looking for savings, and whereas before the costs weren't that prohibitive?
Sometimes, look, in the 1960s when energy was super cheap, we took the eaves off our houses, we made big open plan, we did aluminium sliding doors, and everything was like, we had very thin houses, very little insulation. But of course, things changed. And when energy prices became, I remember when you didn't even think about it. You didn't have to wait a couple of bill cycles to pay your energy bill, right? So things have changed. Energy is very expensive and we're wasting it. We don't need to be, So being able to understand what are the key ways to upgrade that property, but also what we don't have knowledge about the running cost and comfort potential of our properties, of our existing homes. They're capturing a bit in the new home regulation, but existing homes, there are 11 million existing homes in Australia, and, data drives everything. We don't have the really robust data, either from a rating point of view, so that's the potential energy efficiency for property, but also the actual energy efficiency features that you need to start to upgrade or that you can look for in an open home. Because an open home is all about 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms and a car park, and you're going through and going 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, that's a bloody sunroom. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the way our property. So yes, some people it's being driven by savings, Chris, but some people are just being driven by really uncomfortable houses.
That uncomfortable houses is so interesting because unless you've lived in one, you don't realise.
Boom.
If you've lived in a house, with an upstairs that wasn't insulated in summer, you know what it's like living in an uncomfortable house. If you lived with a west-facing wall that doesn't have any awnings or things that I learnt from you, which is basically like, have your shutters on the outside of your windows, not the inside. Have big awnings, have cross breezes don't go through corners. These are things that I actually learnt from you, and I did the livability course all those years ago. But obviously, and you came onto the podcast back then. The thing is, though, what sort of I wonder about is that it's like, and I know this from being in real estate now for 24 years, is that people will come in quite often with things that they want, things that are important to them, but they sort of drop down the pecking order as FOMO goes up. So fear of missing out and getting into the property market drives decisions, and I watch people in hot markets just let go of all the things that they would never, ever, ever agree to buying in a slow market, but they'll just go, I don't care, I want to get into the market. And because I know that sort of emotional behaviour of buyers in particular, and tenants slightly different, but there's FOMO in the tenancy space too now, that consumers might want these things and they might understand conceptually that the cost of the property might be higher, but there are other more pressing fears in the short term. And so I want to sort of go back to that livability, because I didn't talk about the livability program that you invented effectively and since sold to the CSIRO, if I have that correct. How come that the industry didn't grab that and run with it? How come now we've got to go through the governments and regulating in this space because, the actual industry didn't see the benefit in it?
Well, there's a couple of things. Firstly, property value is very personal. You've got a market value, but it might be, I just want to buy the house that's next to grandma. So remember, value is a perception of value as well as a market value. And what the research shows is the big ticket items, how many bedrooms, is it at a price point I want, is it in the suburb that I want, is it close to schools, will always remain. But the second thing that is most top of mind for people is, I wonder how much this is going to cost to run. And remember, that's missing in the narrative. So they're actually going in with a lot of stress and uncertainty because they're sometimes extending themselves with a bigger mortgage. They've got the problem of rising interest rates. And there's a big piece about that property. Research shows that if both, you've got the big ticket items pretty similar between two, because it's about a comparison game when you're trying to buy property. If this property has some of these features which help with running costs, then that will be the deal breaker for you, and you will pay more for that, even if you've got all these other things going on, right?
How has that been measured at a curiosity?
There's been research, behavioural scientists, which are an amazing, wonderful group in the scientific community, and they look at buyer behaviour. So they ask all of these questions, and the New South Wales government did quite a big piece of work with the volume housing industry, at display homes, testing and refining, and Mirvac and the big developers piloted this, and I ended up developing a course which was piloted with HIA, and that was for the volume housing industry. So let's step back a bit. Maybe you're a buyer that you're blind to all of that because you just want to get in the market and you don't care. There's a price point, don't matter.
Right.
That's okay. There's still winners. the most important thing is when they upgrade, make sure they include these upgrades in their renovation plans. So because there is now a new loan product targeting these upgrades with fixed interest rates, very low interest rate, add-on loans that are underpinned by the Clean Energy Finance Company, because everyone wants you to upgrade your home. And they're making it, soon you'll see more and more grants, more and more support to upgrade your hot water system. 26% of your bill is your hot water system, right? So your heating and cooling, you can name the top 5 features that you should be upgrading.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen this start to hit our inboxes of different products that banks are offering. And, there's lots of different companies like Brighter in terms of funding solar panels.
Right. Plenty. Plenty.
And I think that's, that's interesting that the banks are getting obviously looked at in terms of their carbon emissions, basically, of all their loan book, right? And how do they make their homes more efficient? And, I mean, they're better assets, right? A better asset that's more saleable, right? So I think it's a double win, because if the banks do have to foreclose, or, the health of their mortgage book, a well-paid, taken care of property is always going to sell better. Domain did an article just a couple months ago around, is your home efficiency worth it? It said it could sell for like 125,000 more, etc. Do you think that these sort of things are true when you compare like for like, or are they?
Both, all of the big portals show that there's a value uplift. Across Australia. They vary up and down, but there is a value uplift. And some say it's up to 11%. You only need to know if you can quantify that there are going to be savings, and this is the beauty of an energy rating, because that's going to level out. That's why it's a new value proposition. Suddenly, that's going to be transparent. Right. Okay. And that's important, because then when you upgrade your property, you're going to get a better rating. So being able to capitalise your property up to investors, I'd say start thinking about this now, work out your 3-year plan, put a little bit of money aside, and I call them the micro upgrade. Just replace like with energy efficient. Just start upgrading one at a time, because you're capitalising in the right direction for value, but also in the right direction for risk. So that's important, because there's 2 risks when climate is here. One is obviously flood and fire, but the other is the failure to upgrade. Okay, it's called climate resilience. Failure to upgrade so that it's cheaper to run and more comfortable all year round, because uncomfortable houses impact your health.
Do you think that uncomfortable house, though, is going to be the next driver? So you see the financial driver, right? I get it. But do you think it's when people then go, God, this house is cold. God, this house is cold.
It already is. If I ask a room full of real estate agents and property managers, how many people have come in an hour before an open home to try and make the house warmer or cooler? Right? Everyone puts their hand up. And if I ask a bunch of homeowners and, people that are wanting to be in the market, and I say, tell me about, have you ever lived in an uncomfortable house? Oh my God. Oh my God. That's why we're leaving. No. It's just so bloody freezing. No one wants to be in our house. I tell you why. Comfort is a beautiful positioning, because when I say a comfortable house, it's not only got that resonance of it's physically comfortable, but it also means that people want to hang around. People want to be in your house because the temperature's nice, right? You're not getting up and down and changing the thermostat. But also it's got this resonance with comfortably well off, or I'm comfortable, like financially. It's not costing me the earth. Right. So actually a comfortable house is what everyone actually wants. But we've never been able to match that aspiration with property features. Do you see what I mean? It's an idea. Just like agents say, oh, north-facing is great, but which face should be north-facing?
Yeah, exactly.
To get running costs and comfort. Do you see what I mean? So this information, more comprehensive property information, is going to begin to flow through the whole sector. Brokers, for instance, they make health check calls to their lender, to their customers. Every 12 months, they have to make a call with regulation saying, hi, how's it going? Imagine if they could have a call, because they've been trained, about don't forget to upgrade to help with the reduction of your running costs, because that's going to help you with your mortgage in the long term and capitalise your property in the right direction.
I think you're right, though, is the upgrade's a really good time, right? Like, it's people are doing renos and they're going to always go for the kitchen over, things that they can't see sometimes, right? People are just naturally like that. But when the people are doing the big upgrade, right, they're already spending a lot of money, or what's a bit more. But are you finding that we're seeing as a broker that, you know, the desire to do big renos has dropped? I do think it's going to come back as, you know, interest rates start to come back down again. But is it much more expensive? Like, are people, yes, you get 11% uplifts, but are you spending a lot more, do you find, to do this energy efficiency upgrade?
That was a bit of a myth that began back in the day when the market really kicked off. Now, because of regulation around new homes, manufacturers and suppliers have been developing stuff on this level. Now, if you want to get the very best hot water system, it's a heat pump hot water system. It's it can be up to 5 times more efficient than anything else. Yes, you're going to pay more for that, but your running costs will be so much less over time. So it depends on where you're seeing the amount. You know what I mean? You're seeing it. So that's why I say we have the wonderful energy efficiency ratings on products as well as water efficiency ratings. Spend the extra, get the higher rating. Remember, appliance ratings began at 1 to 6. They're now 1 to 10. They put an extra row of stars for the heating and cooling appliances because we've just become so good at this. Yeah. Because this is the only direction innovation can go in our housing, because this is where we need to go as a nation. Every level needs us to go there, right? Because our homes globally are the most uncomfortable in the world. I mean, our stand, 98%, they estimate 98.5 is around 3 out of 10 stars.
So with this, is this something that governments are going to mandate, or is this something that you think that is going to be sort of introduced into 11 million dwellings gradually? Each time something comes up for rent or comes up for sale, then there's going to be this sort of that's the process, or is it meant to be voluntary, that people are going to, you know, sign up for this voluntarily? I mean, what's the vision in terms of the implementation?
Well, this has been part of a national sort of pathway that began really in 2015 called the Trajectory for Low Energy Buildings. And this is one scope of work. The other scope of work is energy efficiency standards for rental properties. And I'll park that, but that's a good conversation to have. So because Australia, in terms of housing, the federal government doesn't have oversight. Every state and territory makes their own decisions. And what we found with the new home ratings is that it was very fragmented. This plan is very different. And I've been on that advisory group with 26 organisations in the state and federal government. And it's been a collaborative approach to what should this look like. So they're planning what they call the Residential Energy Efficiency Disclosure Framework. So that's, how's it going to work? Is it going to be mandatory? Is it going to be voluntary? And so as they've moved along with this, that the document will be completed by June next year. And different states and territories will be more ready to enact it right away. Everyone will have their own choice as to when they want to do that, but everyone will be harmonising up to the national plan. So that's important to know. Whether it's voluntary or mandatory is still decided, and how it gets phased in is still decided. But from my opinion, unless it's mandatory, I think it will create confusion. That's my personal opinion, not PropTech associations or anybody else I represent. But I mean, they're pretty aligned to this as well. Because to make it mandatory, it's likely that it will be at point of sale or rent. So if you're about to sell your house, you will also get more popular now, a vendor by a seller paid inspections. That's much more popular right now. This is going to occur at that stage, and it may or may not be in the contract of sale. And that will need to be disclosed in property advertising.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I've got an online course for first home buyers, and so I'm familiar with the vast array of differences across the states in terms and territories in terms of vendor disclosure, for example, and the contract of sale and what's in it and who constructs it. I don't envy anybody trying to create a uniform system in that environment, but I do sort of think too, interestingly enough, I mean, and I get that you're wanting to put some numbers around this to actually give it some oomph as well. And and I will, hands up, and I'll say that in my renovation, I voluntarily did things because that was my intention, right? So I've got an attitude towards making sure my home is energy efficient and making good choices in that space. However, I also understand that the data you've got for example, in terms of the research you've done in the volume build space, where people have a choice and where they will go based on the opportunities that are offered to them. When you're buying a property in the established market, and as a buyer's agent, I know this, it's very rare that you get given 3 options to choose from in any same time period. It's a really difficult time to navigate. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think it needs to be mandated as well, because if you don't, the simple fact is that buyers will be forced to make decisions that they may not want to make. They may really want an energy efficient home, but they may still decide to buy one that's not because of the pressures. So therefore, if those ratings are made public and made part of the uniform marketing material for every single property, then buyers it's going to be way more transparent. Everybody's going to know that, rather than just those odd properties that do provide that information. So I think that that's a really good thing, and hopefully it does get mandated. I think that will help and really speed up the implementation across the board. Do you think that there's any pushback from any sector on energy efficiency measures, though, due to the increased building costs and increased cost of living? So, because you've got energy efficiency and running costs of property, then you've got the actual construction costs in the first place. Sure. So do you think that it's a bit like landscaping? It's the one thing that everybody puts to it's where the costs get cut,
It depends on how you want to frame it. Like, ironically, the environment is the big winner if you never mention it. There's a paradox.
It's a what? Sorry, I missed that.
The environment is the big winner if you never mention it.
Right. Okay.
I tell you what Explain. I mean by that.
Yeah, please do.
Because it's the lifestyle benefits that these are delivering for the occupant. And you cannot underestimate the value of a lower energy bill. I mean, if you change your hot water system from a really, an old hot water system, you will, and this information is available on sustainability in Victoria, you can go from $1,200 to $198.
Yeah.
Per quarter. Like, this is not a little thing, right? This isn't just, that sounds nice. Like, this is a really big saving. And the other thing is not having to use your mechanical heating and cooling as much because the house has a comfortable set point in the middle of winter really matters, right? So, but if you lead it and say, this is for sustainability's sake, people will go, thanks for sharing. It doesn't resonate for me, right? Yeah. So that's why all the training because you need to lead with the lifestyle benefits because they're real. Yeah. It's not, and even if you never mention the environment will be the big winner because our houses are going to be more efficient, right? But you don't need to, unless somebody is very passionate about that and you want to support them with the information that they need about how it also reduces the impact on the environment. But there's not much time in those big property decision-making moments. And we have to make sure we can give this information in a simple but robust way. And agents, which is my passion is better homes for all Australians. And real estate sector are key professionals that can absolutely shine in this moment in Australia's history because they're property experts and this is more information about property. So if they lean in and upskill, they can deliver an amazing customer experience that really matters to people and that they're searching for, so they can close that link through market demand and property and bring everyone together very quickly. And that will then, when the energy rating comes in, they're ready. They understand what it is. They're not confused. They can simply identify what the star means, where the upgrade piece is on the certificate, and you're off. I've got my upgrade plans. I know I'm paying less for that house. It's not great right now, but in the next 12 months, I can put ceiling insulation in. Do you see what I mean? You've got the upgrade plan right away.
I'm on a personal mission to help more people make better property decisions, and you can find out all about what I'm working on at veronicamorgan.com.au. There you will find resources for first home buyers, details about my buyer's agent mentoring program, information about my newest project, Preferential, proactive property management in Sydney, or if you're looking to buy your dream home or investment property in Sydney's inner west, eastern suburbs or lower North Shore, you can connect with my team at Good Deeds Property Buyers. And if you'd like a 30% discount plus free postage for my book, Auction Ready, How to Buy Property at Auction, Even Though You're Scared Shitless, and yes, I'm a potty mouth, use the code ELEPHANT at the checkout.
If you're looking to buy your first home, thinking of upgrading to a new home, or purchasing an investment property anywhere in Australia, we would love to carefully guide you through this journey and importantly get the finance right. Please reach out to myself and the team at flyntgroup.au.
So this sounds like that you need a bit of an army of people, though, who are able to go and inspect these properties. And but you're in prop tech, so I'm sure you've come up with some much cleverer idea. How would a property get assessed and scored? And what's it like at a cost? I mean, I know that this is preliminary because we're a year away from anywhere.
Yeah, but it's important
happening.
to know that there already is a very powerful professional regulatory framework, the NATAS, the Nationwide House Energy Rating Scheme, that deliver the ratings for new homes. The new rating that's being developed for this is called a whole of home rating, in-home whole of home, and it's looking at appliances as well as solar. So the new home design one is just looking at the thermal shell, the shell of the house and how well that withstands heat and cool. This is adding appliances as well. So that new rating, there already are raters that can be upskilled to be able to go into people's houses. And the NATAS team are very robust. They're part of this whole conversation. Their upskilling pathway, because they've already got compliance, they've already got standards, they've always got professional training. It's just about learning a new piece of software. The other thing is that tech does come into it. So the valuation industry at the moment is trialling using an iPad and something called Magic Plan, where you can go in and take key points and it creates a floor plan, and the software is integrated into that. And it sends that information to a qualified assessor. And this is the things they're piloting. And that comes back with the rating. And there's also machine learning and AI pieces that everyone's looking at just using existing property data. So all I can say is that's part of the testing phasing pathway. And this has been going on, quite robust piloting and research going on about pressure testing. Exactly what you're talking about. What I want is real estate agents to lean in, create relationships with assessors, understand how to do it. And the prop tech sector, which are everyone that underpins a real estate agent's business, from listing portals to the way they manage a property transaction, the tech they use, to be a part of that in that early enablement. So the agent doesn't have to work so hard, it's coming up in their tech. And so the prop tech sector are being they understand fully the exciting opportunity in terms of innovation in this space.
Cecile, there's a lot of research out that we're living in our homes longer than we ever have, right? And it makes sense, right? It's really hard to go from the 2-bed house to the 3-bed to the 4 house with the garage and the pool and the best street. It's just, hard to upgrade, right? A, to get the loan, B, to afford it, and the jumps are just so big. Do you think that's going to be a really good driver for this shift? Because people are going to be like, oh, this isn't just a home for 3 or 4 years. I'm going to be here for 10, 15 years, all the way through the kids getting through high school. And people are coming to that realization a lot more now, which is then to say, well, the payoff is actually there. It makes sense to get the battery. It makes sense to get the hot water system. Is that another driver behind this?
There's a couple of things. So, some people with large properties are now repurposing those to have more people to live in them, so the adult kids might be, the room out the back might become a little, then a lot of prefab solutions are looking at utilising that backyard and how do you have co-ownership. What this is driving is exciting new co-ownership models. The most important thing is whatever you build, make sure it's got that, because remember, it's not just appliances, it's about how the house is designed. And the two features that will always give you a big bang for your buck are insulation and shading, external shading. So make sure the insulation is the highest that you can get. You know what I mean? And so this is definitely the way we're looking at our homes are changing, but it's always been so, right? But now we're looking at, okay, if more people are living in the house, and everyone's having 1 hour showers, we got a problem here, right? You know what I mean? So I think the way we live together, the way we share resources is being looked at very differently, Chris. And I definitely think if you look at it from a financial and lending sector perspective, like if you were an investor, the research shows that investors, if there was an energy rating on a property, they would prefer a higher rated property. But when they're already in the market, they need to understand how to upgrade to make sure they're maintaining their rental value. Because over time, that'll be harder and harder to rent because people are only staying 6 months and then they're out because it's so expensive and so uncomfortable.
Right.
I think what's interesting that so they get their rating and then they get their sort of checklist of their laundry list of things that they could do to improve that rating. There'll be some properties, I would imagine, the real difference will come after sort of every property or lots of properties have actually been upgraded. And then you'll see that they've got a low score and there's nothing to do. You know, you can't fix the bad aspect, you know, with no natural light, or you can't fix it's, you know, it's in a gully with just surrounded by trees, or there's certain things that in some properties you just fundamentally won't be able to fix. Or if
I think you'd be surprised how much interventions can make a difference. And depending on, you know, the age of the house, certainly some of the ones, gorgeous modernist houses in the 1960s, they're impossible to insulate and we love them, but they're just really, really uncomfortable. Working out what are the things that I can do to make this warmer. You know, there's a really important resource. We need to have a link for everyone, which is yourhome.gov.au. And this was a collaborative website that, and you can buy it as a book as well. And it's about your guide to everything, right? And this is going to be upgraded and refined as we get closer to energy ratings. What's going to be great about the energy rating certificate is the upgraded bias is targeted to that home. You need to think of this as not a score. You need to think of it as really rich insights into how I know my property was expensive to run. That's not a big, and that score reflects it. But if I'm buying that, I know exactly what to do. That's going to make a really big difference. And now remember, solar and energy generation, you want to right size that. So you want to make sure you've got absolutely energy efficiency in place in terms of features, you know, appliances, all of those things, and then the solar. And then, so most properties, I'd say there couldn't be too many that you couldn't do something with, because there are so many different interventions that you can do in this space. It really is the most empowering information. I mean, I think you know, Veronica, but every agent that I've trained, they have lots of questions at the end about homes. You know, what about this place? It's hot upstairs. And, you know, and I said, oh, is this about a property listing? And they said, no, we're asking about our own house. Right.
Yep.
So real estate agents becoming, everyone that learns about this goes, now I understand why upstairs is so hot and why I need to do it. Remember, they know it's uncomfortable, but they're not linking it to the features that will deliver the outcome. They feel almost disempowered and overwhelmed. And so they're looking at all these renovation pieces for the look and feel and what they think is value. But this is the new value, the new way to look at your home, that while you're in the home, you're getting the benefit. It's not just flipping it and it's the next person that will get the benefit.
Cecile, when you're well, I'm actually one of those 1960 modernists up on the beaches, like you. And yeah, absolutely. You know, we need to do a massive reno. We're at this. Do we knock it down, which would be a bit of a shame, right? But there's benefits in doing that. Everything's new. We can design it. We can be really selective, right? But then there's a lot of carbon footprint you create, right? When you're knocking down, it's in there.
That's right.
And so, is you have to really? I mean. Yes, you're looking at things that are going to make it better, but, you know, is it trying to get near enough is good enough? And if you have to put a renovation off for a few years, like you're going to go and do a full reno, like what's some small wins that don't cost that much money that you should do? Like, I mean, I've personally done green power, but like what's some other things you think people should think about? If they do think that it's going to be a sunk cost, it's still worthwhile considering doing this, even if it's a few years down the line.
I think the most important thing to remember, look, we're coming into summer, so let's talk about that first. First of all, it's really good to understand what climate zone you're actually in. So what is the climate pattern of where the house is? So in Sydney, it's a mixed climate. So it's your heating and cooling bill are pretty similar. In the ACT, it's a heating climate. It's mainly your winter bill that you worry about. So first of all, understand that. It's a new take on location, right? It's like what's the climate pattern that I'm in, right? And the National Construction Code breaks up Australia into about eight climate zones. So that's the first thing. The other thing is we're coming into summer. A lot of people, obviously, you want to have really good windows. So it can be double glazed or it can be WERS rated, which is a Windows energy rating scheme. So when you're going to purchase your windows, ask the question, can I see the WERS certificate for this window? I want to know that it's going to perform in my climate zone better for heating and better for cooling. Because the technology on these windows, I can't tell the difference when I look at it. Do you see when it's just a window?
Yeah.
But the technology is amazing, right? Because 80% of your heating, is disappearing through the window, all right, because of that glass. So we want to do something there. The other thing is external shading over that northern or western side, because you want to stop the sun hitting the window in the first place.
Yes.
And if you get the right level of shading, you can get the beautiful winter sun without the harsh summer sun. And on the western side, you need that you need it parallel to your window. You need it going that direction. So understanding external shading, when you go to get in your car and it's been locked up and it's really, really hot, that's a greenhouse effect. That can happen in your house because the sun is hitting those windows. So your air conditioning is going full bore and the house is just, the heat is going in, it's not coming out. So that's sort of some simple things, but really your hot water system, your heating and a split system, reverse cycle air conditioning. There are 7-star versions now. Absolutely fantastic. Your hot water system, definitely. And definitely external shading and insulation is the gift that will keep giving its warranty for 25 years, right? So it's a gift that keeps giving. They're the things that I'd be looking at. But also, Chris, in your renovation, you may decide to change where the living room is, because getting that winter sun into your living room and that shading to stop the summer sun, you may find the best room in the house is the laundry. You know what I mean? That's getting that gold, because it's the path of the sun that's free heating, right? And cross ventilation is free cooling. So sometimes it's the fixed window at the end of the hallway. My God, I could just make that an opening window.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So just, it doesn't need to be expensive, but you do need to understand, what are the levers? What are the ones that are going to make a difference for me? When you do, you can find out, God, I can just make that an opening window. For investors, I say, look, my God, it's a fixed window. Make it, even if it's a double hung one, you can put the security things in top and bottom, so you get a thermal current around those windows. Help your tenant to be more comfortable, and they will love being in the house. They'll sign a 5-year lease and they'll, you know what I mean? Like, it's just everybody's right to have a comfortable home.
Is there legislation
100%.
for investors though? Because I remember reading in Victoria something that there's a lot of tenancy changes that investors have to upgrade their investment properties to a new energy standard. Is that right?
Yes. So in the ACT, they've already begun.
Okay.
And this is this revolution I've been talking about that's driven by all these factors. No one's going back. There's no saying, I don't want to know about it. So everyone needs to grow up, basically, and understand this is the new value proposition, get on board. So in the ACT, they started one at a time. And I think this is brilliant. So what they said is ceiling insulation, we're going to give you 12 months.
Right.
This is what it needs to be. Everyone needs to get on board. And if you don't have it, you can't rent the property. And then they partnered with Bright, which are an amazing fintech that are just providing targeted finance just for that one upgrade.
True.
Okay. So they meant that it was very easy for people could get grants to do that as well if they were in financial hardship. And Bright oversaw training the actual installers, the quality of the install. They took photographs of the installation. They backed up the quality of that. So if there was an issue around the installation, they would follow up. So now there's the opportunity to do the next one, right? Victoria's looking at a number of features. I mean, I think everyone in the space thinks that giving property investors a chance to do it one at a time, I think is, or to say you've got 3 years to do these 3, or these are the conversations going on. I don't think there's as much pushback when it's framed correctly for investors. They understand that the property is an asset. You know, in the commercial sector, they see property as asset, and they know you have to upgrade an asset to keep its value in the market. In the residential space, our investors aren't seeing it as a property asset that needs to keep being upgraded towards.
No, they don't.
And we need to really support them to understand a little bit of money aside. There's a big grant for you to upgrade. Property managers have a set point, which is replace like with like. We need to shift that right away and say replace like with energy efficient.
I think it's interesting because I've just gone into the property management business. I've created a new business. We only launched a couple of months ago. And certainly that's part of our message to our clients. This is, you've got to manage this as an asset. And obviously it's a tenant's home. It's your investment, and you want to make sure you optimize your return on that. And that comes from a number of different initiatives. And one is keeping it in peak condition, and also keeping it comfortable for tenants to be able to enjoy living in that home. So there's a lot of that. And there are some investors that are certainly on board with that. But there's certainly, particularly in Victoria, I think I mentioned on the podcast before, I was recently judging a number of the different awards across the different REIs across the Eastern Seaboard. And in REIV, I was one of the judges of the Property Management Award, Property Manager of the Year Award. It's really interesting just reading all the submissions and the challenges that nearly every submission had in there about educating their landlords. Well, they don't call them landlords in Victoria. They call them rental property providers, is it? Is that the official term?
Yeah, because landlord and tenant is feudal language from the 1900s.
I get that. It's interesting. It's still fairly prevalent elsewhere, but it's just really obvious in Victoria. It's changed. And so they're away from the feudal terminology, but they're a challenge that they've had, because in many ways it appears to be, and I've spoken to a lot of people in the industry about this, that the industry has been left with the communication piece to take it to market.
But no training to do that.
That's exactly it. It's been left to the initiative of individual property management businesses and individual property managers to be able to, upskill themselves as to how they can communicate. And really, the message appears to be you have to do it. And there might be good reasons for it. There might not be good reasons for it. It doesn't really matter. You got to. And this is you, in order to be compliant, in order for me to keep actually looking after you and managing this property for you, we have to do this. So I think the messaging is even quite different in its raw form because of that, and so that's the difficulty with mandating this sort of stuff and without the appropriate communication strategy, right?
Yes, but I also think the real estate industry has an opportunity for real leadership here. Because, so first of all, let's begin sort of picking up what you were talking about. It's one of the reasons why I founded Future Agent, to be able to just give that add-on upskilling to everyone in the property sector, because there was no one that was doing it in a real estate-ready way that understood how agents need to be and what customers, they just want quick information. They don't want to get overwhelmed with building performance science, right? So how do we make it so that we can gauge people on those features very quickly in a way that matters to them, right? But that's very robust. So that's one of the reasons behind the founding of Future Agent. The other thing is that it may come a time where there are property investors that go, I can't afford to upgrade in this direction. I need to release my property to the market, right? And that's okay.
In fact,
because to be honest with you, remember those property managers that are going there an hour before the rental open a home and they're trying to make that house more comfortable? The amount of hours that every property manager is wasting by trying to get a house more comfortable for an open home is ridiculous. Now we want to, instead of always accommodating the negative, we want to showcase the positive, right? The other thing is, don't forget, there's going to be a lot of, over the next 12 months, an enormous amount of information coming down and grants to help investors make that decision. Now, if I was talking to an investor, this is what I'd say. Your renter is spending over $1,000 on their energy bill at winter, and that's giving them less disposable income to pay for your rent. So if you upgrade, because in winter, what are they going to stop paying? When it's freezing cold, what are they going to stop paying? They're going to delay your rent because they need the hot water and they need to be warm, right? And it should never come to that. So if you replace that hot water system for the same amount of usage, they could get a bill of $198. That's much more disposable income they've got to ensure that your rent keeps being paid. The other thing is you've now capitalised your property in the right direction for the market and guaranteed that you'll be able to maintain that rental level that you're at, because if you don't, that property is going to be worth less and less over time. In fact, overseas they call it a brown discount, right? If you don't, the next 5 years is the pivotal point. So every investor needs to work on a 3-year plan right away, put 10% aside, work with their property manager and say, what are the hot water system, some shading over those windows. Do you see what I mean? Like, just work out the plan. They can choose which one, but work with that plan and get the agent to do the training.
What do you do with strata buildings? Because, you got a west-facing wall, every single window. Most of them don't have any external awnings. In fact, I look at office buildings, for argument's sake. They love their glazing. Office buildings. I mean, that's we're talking residential here, but I'm astounded at all the new buildings going up without any external awnings or anything like that. So this is something that's a more difficult and expensive and a process to get upgrades in a strata. So what
the strata is, everyone. There's the new way of looking at apartments, and certainly in a strata situation, is the common area and the individual apartment. So there will be a rating for the common area and there will be one for the individual apartment. Now, 60% of the energy bill is going in the common area costs of a place that's, say, over 20 units. So what's going to happen is it'll be very clear to everyone what are the features that we can start to upgrade as a strata group, so that our running costs go down for the common area, because remember, they're going down, the costs. The other thing is, what are the things that I can do in my individual apartment that are going to make a difference? And certainly in the Your Home Guide, that goes into that piece. Now, in terms of regulation, one of the things they're looking at is, where will this occur? Is this in the risk register or the capitalisation plan of that building? The most important thing to know is it will be integrated into the normal conversation around strata. It's just, instead of, it'll be talking about let's upgrade. In fact, the New South Wales government had amazing programs where you could upgrade your hot water to heat pump hot water systems for stratas, but strata is messy. Everyone knows it's messy, and everyone in that regulatory framework is looking at the messy bits and working out how to streamline and, if necessary, how to change regulation to accommodate these changes that need to come down to upgrade the property. And there may be some properties that can't be upgraded.
It's an interesting space. As you're talking there, Cecile, I'm thinking about, particularly in New South Wales, we've got, and not just New South Wales, we've got an issue with flammable cladding on a lot of our strata buildings. And I don't have accurate numbers, but it is quite eye-watering when you know how many buildings are currently still clad in flammable cladding. And the state government actually put together an assistance program, if you like, to help buildings get on the pathway of, replacing that cladding. And they had an enormously disappointing uptake of that. Now, obviously, the strata plans do need to put some money up for that, but they were getting assistance, project management assistance and some financial assistance, my understanding. And it's quite well known there was a really low uptake. And that's just something as important as there's something that could potentially kill a lot of people that are living and sleeping in that building. And yet the uptake for that is really low. I hate to be a pessimist, but I feel like I'm the realist. When I look at human beings and their willingness to actually spend money on things that they see as a nice to have, that to me is not a nice to have. I'd be horrified to live in one of those buildings. But how are you going to get that to happen?
First of all, first of all, you brought this point up a couple of times, so I'm obviously not answering it properly. So I'm going to lean in here and try and really nail this one.
I'm cynical about people, put it that way.
It's good to be cynical. I'm not an idealist, I'm a realist. So be really clear. This is a whole of economy transition. Okay? Property is just one of the levers here. We have to make our homes so they use less energy. Okay? So if we don't, the person that says, bugger this, I'm not going to do it, I don't believe in this, they will increasingly have higher and higher bills. So it's not a nice to have. Do you see what I mean? The other thing is that this is a new value proposition. So we've used to be, this used to be all about just afford to buy. I can't stress enough. It's going to be afford to live in, and they're going to come together as value, right? The first 2 years of home energy ratings and certainly energy efficiency features are going to be better and more. We're working on a standard for those in terms of a property listing. All I can say is you can come kicking or screaming, but you're going to have to come. Or quietly, but you're going to have to come. You can be an early adopter and you can actually benefit from that. Or you can be a laggard and find that your property is just not, tenants are coming in and out of there like a revolving door, right? So the most important thing is it doesn't really matter if you believe. This is really about information about property that is going to empower you to make a better home. Okay, it's just make it vanilla, right?
Oh,
but
I'm on board with that, 100%.
But once you've got the knowledge, so the people that are the most cynical are the people that haven't had the benefit of the really targeted information. So if we can shift the mindset from cynicism to curiosity, we've got it. One of the big things about the home energy rating discussion is the home energy rating certificate, and it's something I've personally advocated for, is the beginning of the story, right? It's then how you make that mean something to you at the moment that's right for you to make the decision that you need to make for you. But you will have the right information to do that. At the moment, you don't have the information, so you can't make the decision. So you're a victim of advertising campaigns that are coming down the line, and you don't know if that's really what my property needs. So you need to see it as valuable property insights we've never had before to make the decisions that are right for me in the time that's right for me. Some people might want it now. Some people might make till it's cheaper. Some people, you know what I mean? Everyone will have the freedom to make the decisions that are right for them because they'll have the information they need to make those decisions. And if property professionals want to really shine, they can be the absolutely most trusted guide at this opportunity of uncertainty and confusion to drive the right conversation into those moments. So people go, oh my God, thank God. Can I ask another question? Can you tell me about what that is and what that does? Do you see what I mean? So I think
100%.
I think it's I call it a renovation revolution, but it's the little renovation. It's the micro one.
Got it.
Cecile, can you finish this off with a property dumbo? I'm not sure if we're putting you on the spot.
Yeah, sure. It's often even with people selling property, but sometimes the new, solar hot water when it first came in Australia was like a round thing and a flat panel on the roof. The old solar heart ones, right?
Yep.
The new ones there's different types, but one of them are a flat panel and the tank's down, beside the property. Sometimes people say, oh, it's got solar panels on the roof. And it's not a solar PV system. It's not about generating electricity. They just see a flat panel and think it's a solar panel, but it's a hot water system.
That's cold.
Do you see it? And sometimes people can think that's what people mean by solar panels, right? So it's just understanding the difference between solar and solar panels and solar hot water.
And that's really great. And that's perfect. We should get you back and have a whole episode on solar. Thank you, Cecile. That's been a really interesting chat. And, we're bracing ourselves for big changes and it is exciting. Despite me being cynical about human beings, I'm actually excited about these changes. So thank you.
No worries. It's so great to be able to share the information, and I'll put those links down for everybody so that they can go and have a look and they know, what the set point is, and watch the space for the announcements that come up.
Yeah, we'll pop those links in the show notes too. Thanks,
Cecile.
If you have a question that you'd like us to answer in an upcoming Q&A episode, you can send us a voicemail or written question via the website, theelephantintheroom.com.au, or you can email us directly at questions@theelephantintheroom.com.au. If you like what you're hearing, please share this episode with others you feel would benefit. And while you're at it, why not leave us an iTunes review? 5 stars would be great. I know that sounds a bit cringy, but we have it on good authority that every review helps make it easier for other people to find out about us and hear what our amazing guests have to say.